Dialectical behavior therapy was created in the 1980s by Marsha Linehan in Seattle, Washington.
Today, DBT is taught all over the world.
We're two therapists who believe everyone can benefit from DBT skills.
I'm Kate.
I'm Michelle.
And this is DBT and Me.
Hello, everyone.
Hello. We're finally at my birthday one.
That's literally what I was about to say. Yes, Kate has been anticipating and building up to when are we going to get to the Q&A. That's the same age that she is, and it happens to be Q&A 37. So here we are.
Here we are. Ah, jinx.
I know. Same brain.
Same brain.
And you get to read the first one today.
I do get to read the first one. I will also preface by saying that our mascot is here. So if you hear the cat or hear me talking to the cat, I will try not to, but sometimes it slips out anyway. And I say something to him. So say hello to everyone, Jin. There we go.
He's just taking a bath.
He is.
He's got better things to do.
Right. All right, so the first one reads, "Hello, I'm looking for some advice on how to manage my housemate, who I might have to set some boundaries with. They've been away for almost 2 weeks, staying with their family in another city. I got a message from them that went into a lot of detail about a family situation that included some safety concerns about their child. I've only been living with this person for 5 weeks. I don't really know much about them, and we've never hung out. They also asked if I wanted to get a coffee. So, I was a bit concerned about them sharing all those details out of the blue, and I'm conflicted about making sure they're okay, but needing to set boundaries and the awkwardness this might create. I've just moved to the city to take a new job, and I'm in a pretty good place after hitting rock bottom earlier this year, so I'm keen to just enjoy living life in this new city. But I feel like this may lead to my being drawn into my housemate's very complicated situation. I have empathy, but I don't want to be the person they turn to first on what to do, because I don't think I'm the right person. And I'm worried about the emotional weight that would involve on my end, and in turn, affect my own mental health. What's the best way I can handle this?"
Yeah, this is a fantastic question. And, even if the details, of course, are going to be unique to every situation, at the core of this, what I hear is this question that can come up of how do I handle it when I have somebody in my life who's maybe oversharing or maybe wanting to get closer with me than I want to get close with them.
Yep.
How do I handle that? And if that's, the core of what's going on here, that could be a pretty common dilemma that people wind up facing. So, yeah, great question to ask. The main skill that I thought of here is fast. Because, right, if we look at the elements of fast, if we walk through each of those, with the F standing for fair, I really hear what this listener is saying. Like, it's very important that they be fair to themselves, if that makes sense. Like, when they talk about how, like, I was hitting rock bottom earlier this year, I'm in a good spot right now. I don't want to, exactly as they put it, be drawn into a very complicated situation that could take a lot of emotional resources from me. Like, I need to really make sure that I'm only giving as much as I can give. I hear that. Totally in line with the fair element. With the A standing for no apologies. There's nothing to apologize for here. There's nothing to apologize for when it's just kind of like, I don't really have the capacity or the desire to get embroiled in what's going on with someone else.
Person's family. Yeah.
Yeah. Sticking to values, the S, I think that also is really in line with figuring out that balance between taking care of yourself and how to be there for other people. And that it's going to be really important for this listener to stick to their value of self-care.
Yes.
And then with being truthful, that's going to be really important here, because I could imagine that there could be this temptation to just kind of tell the person, oh no, I'm not free for coffee on that day. Like, but not actually telling them.
Yeah.
What
I
they're.
don't want to.
Yeah, I don't want to. Or I'm not really sure how to help you, or
I don't think I'm the appropriate person, which I think is a great thing that they pointed out there.
Yes. Yeah, I want us to be more like roommates than maybe like friends. If, you can figure out how to say those things without being a dick. And if you don't say those things, and if you're not truthful to some degree, then this person is probably going to get the impression that they can keep turning to you when it's something you don't feel comfortable with. So I would definitely utilize some elements of fast here. One of the things that I encourage people to say, which may come in handy for this listener situation and is in line with fast. I mean, right, Dear Man really walks you through this script, but Give and Fast, as two other interpersonal effectiveness skills, they don't really tell you what to say. Dear Man, it's very spelled out. But in Fast, I think sometimes we can feel a little bit like
adrift.
Yeah, I was about to say, like, you're kind of thrown out to sea and you just kind of have to figure it out. Okay, how do I be fair and stick to my values and all this? But kind of a phrase here that I think could be really helpful is telling people basically no to this, but yes to that. This is a strategy that can work really well in parenting. When you're telling your child something like, you may not have a brownie right now, but you can have a brownie after dinner. Right? That kind of an idea. So figuring out what that would look like here, and I could think of lots of ways that could look, depending on what this listener feels comfortable with. It could look like, meeting up for coffee doesn't work for me, or isn't something that I'm willing to do, but I am happy to talk with you at the house for like 30 minutes about what's going on. It can look like I want us to talk about concerns related to us sharing a house together, but I can't really be here to hear things about your personal life. And the other reason why I think fast is going to be really important here to add in is that it I think would be absolutely important to, again, to the degree that you feel comfortable with, but to self-disclose about the mental health struggles that have been going on for you personally here, listener. Like, share some of that with your roommate, so that they understand that, this has a lot to do with where you've been and where you are now. This isn't just you saying, like, I don't want to deal with your problems. You have sound reason here. So I would consider things like that. Saying, basically, this does not work for me, but this does. And getting clear for yourself about what you want the relationship to look like with this roommate. Hey, I'm happy to listen to you, if you need to vent after a long day of work. And also, like they said, I don't want to be your necessarily go-to person. So think through it. Figure it out for yourself. Kind of like, this doesn't work for me, but this does. And tell that to your roommate so that they can get clear on what your boundaries are. Don't want to be getting texts at 2 a.m. But, I'm fine if you, do need to text me in the afternoon or when I'm off work or that kind of a thing. So I hope you're kind of getting the idea of what I'm getting at there. But I think that could be helpful here to establish what the relationship is going to look like with this person.
I like it.
Thanks.
Also, don't mind me having a standoff with my cat. Who crop dusted me before he got off my lap.
Oh, very nice.
Right? Good job, cat. Love you too. So, I don't know. When I was looking through the notes today, like, Michelle got the one that I think is top tier, like, appropriate for the situation with fast, but I did think that, I don't know, a couple other things might help support that in a way. Because sometimes, fast is more the way of doing things than the what, which is sort of, I think you were touching on that, Michelle, with the, like, cast out to sea kind of idea. So, you might end up doing kind of a Dear Man, actual way of talking to this person, but maybe Dear Man from a fast stance rather than Dear Man from more of a give stance. But I did just want to say that there's possibly room for, and I think actually, Michelle, this is a little bit similar to your, I can't do this thing, but I can do this thing. Right? Dear Man might be a structure where you can ask them to change their behavior or proceed in a different manner moving forward, something like that. Also, I thought about cope ahead, just because when we're going to be doing something difficult, especially emotionally scary, I think it can be really helpful to walk ourselves through it in our imagination a few times, kind of as a way to rehearse what we want to say and how we want to say it. Whether that be something that's in a, the Dear Man scaffolding or just more free form. Walking your way through it, working your way through it a few different times, and maybe in a few different ways until you find the thing that really sits right and, that you feel capable and comfortable with doing. And last but never least, I said mindfulness in my notes, but I think what I actually really mean is wise mind, right? I see a lot of hints in there that you already know kind of what your wise mind is saying, and you just are scared or worried or, anxious about the implementation of it. But just in case, especially when you're maybe gearing up to have some sort of conversation with your housemate. Yes, Jen, I'm going to let you. Yes, I'm going to let you out in just a moment, you silly shit. I was hoping I could just sneak out between different things, but no. Yes, dude. Anyway, wise mind to help you remember that you're coming from the right place and that you're tending to things appropriately. Oh my Lord, you are so impatient. I don't know, anybody who has Siamese probably understands. Apparently, they're well renowned for being impatient and loud.
I'll just maybe finish your thought there, Kate, if I'm headed in the right direction. But yeah, I mean, I hear that too in what this listener is saying. Like, everything is there. Everything to say to this roommate is right in this post. It really is, I think, just a matter of feeling confident in saying it and letting go of any kind of worries or beliefs that, like, you're going to be the bad guy here. Because all of it's there. You see it all in terms of, like, this is why I need this for me. This is specifically what's made me feel uncomfortable. Like, you've got this, listener. It's just a matter of now communicating it.
Yes. And I think your wise mind can not only, has already shown you kind of what needs to happen here, but also you might be able to return to it as a way to remind yourself, like, what you know and where you're coming from to help bolster that self-confidence. So,
yep. Great.
Thank you, everyone, for your patience with the cat.
Now, hopefully, he will make up his mind to stay gone. We'll see.
Yes.
He might want to come back in soon.
Oh, Lord.
Okay, I've got the next one here. This one says, I am trying to use contribute by helping others in a volunteering capacity. At my workplace, I have been told when speaking about non-affordability of housing during a workplace discussion on homelessness, it is not for you to talk about affordability. And in a workplace discussion at which others were making inappropriate misogynistic comments in a discussion about violence against women, I said women need justice and rape cases are not being prosecuted enough. Again, I was told it is not for you to say such things. Maybe during election time it's okay, but you cannot speak in this way at our meeting. My attempts to use the contribute skill are not working. I'm now worried because the person making these "you must not speak" comments is a supervisor. Suggestions, help, please. If I complain, inevitably I'm the problem, right? Do I use Dear Man to request a change? Or do I regard the issue as non-personal and just continue trying to contribute? I feel anxious about this. Do I need to ask for a Dear Man change for my workplace? Or do I just need to view this anxiety as my issue and self-soothe, distract, and accept this supervisor person as she cannot hurt me and she cannot stop me from contributing?
Oof, good questions. I want to start off by simply owning that reading through this, man, did I get pissed on behalf of this listener? So I ought to probably own that my first response was like, screw that person. the fuck do they mean it's not your place to make that comment? Anyway, so I have some ire when I hear that. But trying to address the actual questions that this listener had, the first thing I thought about was, what are your priorities? Because I don't know, right? It sounds like also there's a little bit of an up in the airness for you, right? Is the main point to just keep on working on contributing? Is the main point getting what I want or need from my workplace here? Is the main point, right? There's these sort of different options for what to pursue or what's the most important thing. And I think that that's the first step. It's what really is your priority in this situation. Because that's going to drive everything that comes after it. Right? If you're just like, I'm just here to contribute, they can't get in my way, I can contribute if I want to. Then maybe, you soothe your own anxiety and just move forward through it. Because whatever. Maybe actually standing up for something in your workplace because these comments, these other things are making you uncomfortable, and like making a change in your workplace is your most important thing. That's going to have certain steps, right? There's so many different paths that you could take here, listener, depending on, what's most important to you. So that's not, I guess, technically speaking, advice about what to do once you're down one of those roads. So I do think Michelle is gonna comment on some of those, just looking at her notes. But the other thing I wanted to mention, and Michelle, correct me if I'm getting the wording on this wrong. One of the things in the interpersonal effectiveness module that they talk about is like what's getting in the way, like what might be making it difficult
like 6
for you to
barriers.
succeed. Yeah, barriers, challenges, something like that. Wasn't sure the wording. Anyway, one of them, and I may also be getting the wording wrong here, is essentially like the environment is more powerful than you are. And I think the workplace is one of the key things I imagine when reading this anyway, or when teaching this in our groups. And I just want this person to keep that in mind, right? That sometimes we can be doing all of our skills. You could go and do Dear Man. You could go and use Give or Fast or whatever other skills you want to try and employ here. And it may not have the results you want because, your place of work, and specifically since the person saying these things to you is a supervisor, you may just be lower down in the power hierarchy here, and that can make it really challenging. So I think I wanted to bring that up, not to make you feel powerless, right, or incapable or anything else, but just to give yourself some grace. Like, the anxiety makes a lot of sense when you're in a power down, right, position from the people that you're having an issue with. So huge amount of validation for just the fact that this is discomforting, this is anxious making, right? That makes a lot of sense. And also, don't assume that your skills are the problem necessarily if when you move forward, it doesn't have the result that you want. Have some grace for yourself there too, because again, it sounds to me like you're in a situation where, that environment is more powerful than you. And so you may not have the effect you want. I know a lot of us can assume we're doing the skill wrong if it doesn't work. And I want to really offer this up as an explanation for why, even if you do the skills perfectly, it still may not work and just not be your fault. So, figure out your priorities first and foremost, and then have grace for yourself, whatever the outcome after that.
Yeah. I really like that you point that out, that barrier, because I would agree. And it kind of brings me back. I've been mentioning it, I feel like, a lot on recent Q&As, but to the serenity prayer, right? To accept the things you cannot change and the courage to change the things you can. There's going to be a lot in your workplace setting that you can't change. Unfortunately, that's a tough pill to swallow. And again, not one that you have to then just kind of roll over and take it, right? But something to kind of have some perhaps radical acceptance around is that when I speak up, it falls on deaf ears. Because it is, unfortunately. Yeah. Okay, so what came up for me at first, which, again, Kate and I are flexible, I think, a lot of times with when we believe DBT skills can be used and can be helpful. just want to revisit real briefly the intention behind the contribute skill, right? So contribute is one of the C's in the acronym accepts. So accepts is a skill that's all about distraction. It's all about when I have a situation going on in my life that's maybe outside of my control or causing me a lot of distress, how can I give myself a bit of a break and a bit of a reprieve from this really stressful situation that I'm facing? And the rationale behind contribute is that when we can turn our attention off of kind of our own struggles and turn our attention towards helping other people, it can be really distracting and really all-consuming, to be able to focus on how we can, make a difference for other people when we see a need. So this sounds really bad because I don't want to say this listener is not doing anything wrong by speaking up. By all means, when you see injustice, I fully support and admire people who say something about it, like this listener is. So I'm not saying, well, be quiet, listener. Like, don't say anything. Don't rock the boat. That's not what I'm saying here. But is this using contribute? I don't think so, really, if I'm being honest. I don't think it's using contribute in the way that DBT meant for contribute to be used. I really think, which I just said it in the last one, I was talking about fast, I really think that's the skill that's being used here. Is this listener trying to stick to their values and say, when there's information being talked about in meetings and things of that nature that are against their values, they're trying to say, hey, this isn't right. That's using fast, in my opinion, much more than contribute. So I don't know if that's helpful at all, but again, I think when we think of ourselves as like, I'm going to do something that's like helpful for other people, right? I'm going to contribute in some way, and our attempts at contributing are essentially rebuffed, like not really taken well. Chances are we're not using contribute correctly. Because when we are using contribute correctly, we've identified a need and hopefully like gotten permission from whoever we're trying to contribute, saying that they want our help. That they'd like for us to go and run that errand for them, or we're, working with an organization that wants us to help in a specific fashion or that kind of a thing. So this is a lot more fast is the lens that I'm viewing this through. That having been said, when it comes to being in an environment, whether it's a workplace or relationships with other people in your life, like romantic relationships or family relationships or whatever it is, if you are realizing that the people in that environment are not maybe holding the same values as you, that can take a really big toll on your mental health. It can. To be in an environment like that every day where it's like I speak up and I get shut down. So what are my options? Like, I want to keep speaking up. And do I just continue to take getting shut down? Do I start to silence my voice? Like, that doesn't feel good either. None of it feels good. So, I mean, this is something really serious to look at in terms of, can you really see yourself staying in this environment when this is the response that you get in meetings and things like that? I really like the listener's idea about using Dear Man. I would even almost consider using Dear Man. You can request a change, right? That's what they say here. I would be curious almost to pull the supervisor aside. Like one-on-one, not group meetings. Like it sounds like where a lot of these things are happening. One-on-one. And to use some elements of Dear Man to try to get some clarity on what's going on here. And this might look like saying something like, in last week's meeting, I made this comment. This is what you said in response. And I'm starting to feel really invalidated and silenced when I'm speaking up about something that seems really important. And I want to get some clarity from you in terms of why it's happening that when I make these comments, I'm being told to not make them. And I'd really like us to talk about this a little more so that we can have a better working relationship. Right? Like, you can, I think it would be good to maybe open up a discussion here and figure out what's going on. And how the supervisor responds when you're just one-on-one. That might give you some clarity, but yes, if you need to switch to another department or that kind of a thing, I think that could be a great thing to ask for. So then you can maybe find this balance where like you're not having to like completely abandon your job, which can be very stressful, but you're finding more validation and support than you are currently. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Overall, I would say that when there are things that you're really passionate about and you're speaking up about those things and you're being shut down, yeah, it might be also really good for your mental health. And this would be maybe in line with contribute to, you know, you mentioned at the beginning, like helping others in a volunteer capacity. So you're probably already doing some volunteering, which is great. But yeah, find like-minded people. Find people who are going to welcome your contributions, who want to hear your voice, who also are speaking up about these things. I think that could be really, really important to find opportunities like that because you're not getting it here in this setting, which is unfortunate. So.
It is.
Yeah. Okay. Next one.
Next one says, DBT skills for seasonal affective disorder, otherwise known as SAD, which is funny in its own way. I've been blindsided by SAD many times. Now I want to be prepared as the days are getting shorter and the cold weather and snow will make me want to hide inside my house with the blinds closed. What do you do to help with SAD?
Yeah. I'm going to try to keep my comments brief because I mostly want Kate to answer this because Kate has personal experience with SAD. And SAD is not something that I have experienced, though it is super, super common. So I actually don't think we've really ever addressed it on the podcast, though.
Which is kind of funny.
It's a great topic to talk about since so many people experience it. But kind of in terms of DBT skills that I think are important, self-soothe is huge. I mean, it just is. Like, because when I imagine people self-soothing, I really do imagine it in kind of this like wintertime setting. Like, it's dark outside and you're in your house with fuzzy socks and a cup of tea and like a fire in the fireplace. Like, that's how I imagine self-soothe. Which, of course, you can self-soothe in so many ways all throughout the year. But I just imagine self-soothing in this context of really, like, curling up and getting cozy. And finding things within your house that are really calming for you so that it can be more of a pleasant experience to be inside, which some people very much struggle with. Especially if a lot of the things that you like to do are outdoor activities. This can be really hard. So how can you make it as enjoyable as possible with self-soothe? The other thing that's really important skills-wise is please. Oh, this is why I think SAD affects so many people. Is because it can make it harder to exercise. If you're a person who likes to go for walks or things like that. It can certainly affect our sleep. Makes it a lot harder to get up in the morning when it's dark out. Our bodies naturally are like, no, keep sleeping. Wait till the sun comes up, which we can't always do. So please, stuff just naturally gets a little thrown off with the change of the seasons. And so it takes more work to be in alignment with making sure you're taking care of all those things. Also, I'll name this too, physical illness. A lot of people's pain gets worse with cold weather. With having hip surgeries, I know that's happened for me. My hip historically starts to hurt worse in the winter months as the weather gets colder outside. So please get harder. and trying to really be intentional about what you can do to try to keep it on track is going to be a really good place to keep coming back to as a foundation for getting you through these months. And then the final thing I thought of is just some degree of radical acceptance. We can't change the weather. We can't change the seasons. We don't have that power. And Kate, maybe you'll wind up talking about this in yours, because with what I know of you and how you've coped with sad for yourself, it really did take getting to a place of radical acceptance to be like, oh, and I need to do things differently here. If I just keep pushing on like everything's fine and I'm just going to keep going, that's when it gets worse. So just, accepting that this is what happens for you. And rather than trying to get into this mindset of thinking,
I'm totally going to talk about this, I bet.
Yeah, you probably are. Like, getting into this mindset of like, well, this year I'm not going to feel any of those things.
Oh, gosh.
No, you probably are. And it'll do you a lot more good to accept that this may be something that you just consistently struggle with. Rather than something that you want to fool yourself into thinking that, oh, this isn't going to be a problem. That can be a slippery slope when we tell ourselves everything's going to be fine when it may not be. So radical acceptance is going to be important too.
Absolutely. So I love that you dealt with all of the DBT stuff. I don't have to touch it.
Yes. No DBT skills for you to talk about.
I do also want to own that, like, I will give examples from my life for, what I'm going to talk about. But I do, before I dive into those, want to own that I have a piece of enormous privilege here, which is being my own employer. And having my own business. So I just want to put that out there, because some of the specific things that I have done are not feasible for most people, and I do understand that. I'm hoping the flavor of the things, though, will still be applicable in some way or another. So first and foremost, set up a self-care routine. And stick to it. Right? Like, just ramp that shit up. I don't know what self-care looks like for you. For me, this is... amusingly, Michelle and I will talk about this more in a moment, but journaling.
Yeah, the next one is about journaling.
Yep, is a piece of it for me. Meditation is a piece of it for me. Stretching is often a piece of it for me. Tea. I basically live on tea during the winter. Lighting candles, making the house smell good, right? Like, I have a lot of things that just sort of scaffolding I build around myself to get through these seasons. And a lot of that is like, I do this every day. I just do. I don't always want to. I don't always feel like it. Sometimes it seems like more effort than it's worth. But that's a lie, because I feel worse when I don't. Don't listen to yourself. You're not telling yourself the truth. It's still a good idea to do it. Right, so self-care routine with an N, and try and get it started as early as possible, so you're kind of in the flow of it before the depths of winter hit. So that's thing one. The next two things kind of go together. I'm not sure how to, I don't know. Like, I try and think about priorities, and also, as you said it, Michelle, kind of radical acceptance. I spent, I don't know, every year up until 2 years ago, just trying to pretend that winter was the same as the whole rest of the year. I knew it wasn't the same for me, but I was like, the world doesn't stop just because I'm sad. So I've just got to keep doing the same things, because all the same things are there to be done, and so here we go. And it was bad. It was bad for a long time. So 2 years ago, the first shift that I made, and this is one of those things where I know that I have a lot of privilege here, is I realized that one of my least favorite things about winter was getting off work after dark. Especially because we have short enough days where Michelle and I live that often meant that I'd started in the dark and gotten off work in the dark. No! So 2 or 3 winters ago, I guess this will be the 3rd winter for it. So yeah, 2 winters ago, I just told all my clients, I was like, look, I'm going to try and model the things I want you guys to do, which is focus on self-care. And I'm off work no later than 4, preferably 3, but no later than 4 during the depths of winter, because around here it's pitch black by 4:30 in the shortest months of the year, right? So I was like, I just need to do this for me. And that by itself made a huge impact for me. And I think about this as like, what are your priorities, right? It's pretty common, especially in America, to prioritize work and your work ethic, right? That idea of a work ethic as a pretty high priority. And it took until I was, how old was I 3 years ago? 34. Before I went, you know what? No. Nope, that's not actually my top value. So I guess it's a little bit of fast with myself. I don't know. Right? Which is like, nope, I need to function, actually. My health has to be a higher priority than my work ethic. And so that was the first change I made. Last year, I made an even more drastic change, and this in its own way might be more accessible than something as dramatic as changing work hours, is I just decided to accommodate myself as much as I humanly could. What that looked like for me was just accepting chores don't happen after dark. They just don't. I'm just done. My day is done. The sun goes down, my day is done. Which is weird, because, by the way, my goodness, do I end up reading a lot of books and watching a lot of television and movies and playing games and stuff, because, you know, I'm not willing to go to sleep at 4:30 p.m.
Yeah.
But, like, I completely absolved myself from the expectation of being, not progressive,
Productive.
Thank you. Jesus Christ. Being productive after dark. I mean, it's not to say that I literally never was. Sometimes I would feel up to it, or, you know, every now and then there might be like some weird outside pressure-y thing that made me make an exception. But for the most part, I just was like, yeah, I'll do things on weekends. I'll do things, you know, if I happen to have a break in work in the middle of the day, or maybe I'll do things in the morning before work. But I just don't expect myself to do that shit after dark. And you know what? Last year was the least depressed winter I think I can ever remember having. Because a lot of, it turns out, and I think some Buddhists are gonna be laughing at me about the obviousness of this, but it turns out my suffering was greatly reduced when I wasn't failing my own expectations constantly. Yeah, I can't change, as Michelle was saying, you can't change the winter. It is what it is. And in many ways, I don't know, I guess I ought to maybe do research on this someday, but I think the SAD is not like we're not going to do talk therapy to stop having it. Like, we might be able to do talk therapy to help with the symptoms of it. But that's just how we are. It's how we're wired. It is what it is. So I was like, well, I can't change the weather, and I can't change me in that particular regard. So what I can change is what I expect of myself. And that made a big difference. So again, everybody's life is going to have more or less room for doing this. But as much as you can, try to accommodate yourself and realize that you're just not the same through the winter as you are the rest of the time. That's okay. You didn't sign up for it, right? You were never standing in some line and being like, well, I think off of this menu, I'll pick the SAD. Like, this is just a thing that's true in your life, right? So see if you can't give yourself that grace and that kindness when it comes to the winter. A couple of other more, I don't know, tangible things. I actually find that it helps me a bit when I ask others to tell me things that are bringing them joy about the season. Right? Like, what's making you happy? Because I'm fucking miserable. So please share with me your excitement about the rain, because what? right? Share with me that you're excited about this thing, or the darkness for that reason, or the very loud car driving by. Right? Like, share those things with me. Also, share with me things that I could utilize. Maybe I can't just talk myself into being excited about the fog and the rain. But you know what? I hadn't thought about lighting candles all the time until a friend of mine was like, that's something I do for myself in the winter. I was like, oh, I love candles. That's a great idea. I hadn't thought about that. Now I have a candle burning all day, every day, all winter. I just do. They make me happier. Right? So ask others for things that make them happy, whether they're people who are really excited and happy about and through winter, which they're going to make their own kinds of contributions, or maybe other people that struggle. Maybe they have ideas that you haven't thought of. So outsource. And last but never least, I always think about mindfulness, right? And mindfulness, I think, is a way of, I don't know, in service of all of these other suggestions, right? Be mindful of yourself. What accommodations do you actually need? What would actually help, right? So trying to be mindful of your internal experience and what makes a shift in that. Being mindful of like, oh yeah, I need to reach out to other people. I haven't done that in a while. Like, okay, right? So trying to just be focused and aware as often as possible, as a way of bolstering, yourself, and also helping you to be grounded in what's real and not what you're trying to make things be. So those are my ideas.
Great thoughts. Yeah. Okay, this is the last one for today. And like we already alluded to, this one's about journaling. So it says, I wonder if anyone has any suggestions on how to do journaling. I keep a gratitude journal, and it's a quick list of what is good. Kate was recently talking on the podcast about morning pages, and while I have kept morning pages sometimes, I find that when my morning pages are negative because I'm ruminating on bad past stuff or what I'm worried about, it isn't helpful. On the net, I read that someone who has nothing to do with DBT uses learnings, ideas, feelings, and experiences, which is LIFE as an acronym, as prompts for journaling. I'm thinking of trying this. Does anyone have any other methods?
So, much like Michelle said that she was mostly going to let me answer the last one, I am mostly going to let Michelle answer this one, because that woman has a lot more journaling under her belt than I have, or probably will ever have. I'm pretty sure I can never catch up. So, I'm gonna let that be mostly with Michelle. I will say, I totally understand the, if you're journaling about hard or negative seeming things, that being harder. For me, I find it more purgatory than focusing, right? So kind of, I don't know, word vomiting my misery onto a page actually helps me feel free of it afterwards. Like I've put it somewhere, I've done something with it, and so it's not plaguing me quite so much. So that's where a lot of my experience with journaling has come from. But is actually a place to put stuff that is rattling around in my head and causing me suffering. So that's a little bit different. Other than that, the only thing that I thought of, and whether it's morning pages is the way that, that's a specific term. I do not remember the name of the woman who came up with it. Maybe I ought to go look it up, but I don't know. But I did find that for me, just trying to have a regular journal practice was a lot easier once I switched to doing it in the mornings. Because it was so easy to not do it at night.
Yeah, right? Tired, out of a long day.
Oh, there was other things, or, exactly. I want to go to bed. It's gotten really late. Like, I just had a nigh endless list of excuses not to do it. Whereas if I just wake up and it's literally the first thing I do, well, I don't really have much in the way of excuses, do I? It's first and everything else accommodates it, rather than everything else coming first and it having to flex to accommodate that. So, for people who, gosh, why am I yawning? Sorry, guys. Oh, is it almost, yep, it's 2:00. Do you know this about me, Michelle? I start yawning at about 2:00 almost every day.
Yeah. Yep, that's where my energy dips as well, actually.
Yep. I can almost tell the clock by it. Anyway, so for people who maybe don't have the exact struggle of this listener, which is, having the negative stuff, make journaling less helpful, and you're just struggling because you mean to do it every day, but you don't, the best suggestion I have, is to do it first thing in the morning. Because then, there's a lot fewer reasons to not do it. I give myself a pass on days I wake up with a migraine because I probably won't be doing anything that day. But other than that, on to you, Michelle.
Yeah, I really liked this. I mean, of course, DBT has so many acronyms. That life acronym, as the listener mentioned, is not DBT related, but I liked that prompt. I thought that was great. And because this listener threw out an acronym, I was like, I know an acronym that I can't take credit for, but I have a friend named Kelsey. She's a pastor. And she came up with this idea. She encourages people to do it on Monday mornings. She calls it Monday Morning Shift. So the acronym is SHIFT. She encourages people to think about 5 different things and to write them down ideally. And she sends out like a weekly email to her subscribers saying how she fills in these blanks each week. And she normally just does it with like a sentence or 2. Like, doesn't take much time, though can if you want it to. So the acronym is SHIFT, and this is what it stands for. It stands for sacred, hopeful, inspired, filled, and thankful. So to dive into each of those a little bit, so sacred, like what has felt really special to you in this last week? Like when did you have, I interpret it anyways like this, like when did you have a moment that maybe just felt like really poignant? Or again, like something you want to hold on to, special memory that might have happened, that kind of a thing. Hopeful, what's making you feel hope? What are you looking ahead towards that you feel excited about, that you're looking forward to? Inspired, when was there a moment that you, this could look like being inspired by nature, being inspired by an act of kindness that you saw someone do in public, inspired by, it could be so many things. But just what made you feel inspired? Could be pieces of art that you saw. Anyways, things like that. Filled, what brought you a sense of fully being alive? When did you feel really energized this week? When did you feel like you were maybe functioning at your best? What was making you feel filled up? And then thankful, right? We think of that in the typical gratitude sense. What's something that you were thankful for that happened this week? So that's one prompt that I think could be helpful, especially, right, depending on the rationale for why you're journaling. This could be helpful. I love that you talked about this, Kate, because it tends to be my rationale for journaling too. I also tend to journal in the sense of I am feeling absolutely shitty right now and I need to purge.
Yep.
I need to get my thoughts on paper and process through why I'm feeling as badly as I am about this situation. I need to essentially kind of vent about it in the pages of my journal. That's tended over the years to be what prompts me to pick up my notebook and write thoughts down. But I love it when people are wanting to use journaling with the intention of having it be that it really helps their mental health take this turn towards growth or positivity or finding more joy, and really setting that intention for journaling. And if that's the intention for why you're journaling, which is what gratitude journals are all about, I mean, that SHIFT acronym might be really helpful. Another way that my journaling has taken many forms over the years. For a while, I did what I called a top 10 list. I made an intentional effort to journal once a week. I was journaling every Monday. Because I had Mondays off, and I just wrote down the top 10 things that stood out to me about the week before. Good, bad, didn't matter. Sometimes super small and random, sometimes really big and monumental, but just what were the top 10 things that happened in this past week? So when I say top, right? Again, it didn't necessarily mean the best 10 things. it just meant like what stood out the most from this past week. And I would just write like number 1, this, number 2, that. So it was a way to keep me in a journaling practice and kind of document what was going on in my life. Because also for me, that at times has been another reason for why I journal. I want to capture certain memories. I don't want to forget. So there's certain events that happen in my life that I really try to journal about pretty intensely. Like if I'm going on a trip, I really try to journal every day I'm on the trip. Not for the purgatory purpose, like Kate and I have talked about already, but just because I want to be able to look back at that trip and really remember. And I'm going to be more likely to remember when I write it down and then can go back and reread it later. So a top 10 list can really help with that if you're just wanting to like purely document what's going on in your life, so you can reflect back on it. That can be a good way to do it. I'll also say to this listener, there are so many journals out there that have questions to prompt you. You can find journals, I'm trying to think of like what phrase would be good to like Google, but you can find journals that are like designed for you to journal a little bit every day, and it'll be like 365 questions. And every day they'll just ask you a different question. They'll be like, what's your favorite food and why? Or like, where's a place you want to travel to? Or it's really just meant to, again, kind of get you in touch with your sense of self. Find the benefits of writing. There's so many benefits to just writing.
I did just Google journal with prompts.
Oh yeah, you did? Are you finding anything good?
So many things.
So many things. Yeah.
So many things. The new mindset journal, purpose finding journaling, life-changing journal, start where you are journal. Anyway, yeah, there's a lot of them about.
Yeah. So, for those of you who are like, I really want to journal, but I look at the blank pages and I don't know where to begin. Yes, so many different types of journals out there to get you going that could be helpful. The last thing I'll say about journaling before we wrap up, and I didn't put this down in my notes, but it feels really important to say because let me tell you, I have been journaling more than half my life now. Gosh, I started journaling the summer before my freshman year of high school. So yeah, I've been journaling for a while. And here's the thing that I've come to notice within myself. Not everyone is going to struggle with this, but I have certainly struggled with this and continue to struggle with it. I can get into a very perfectionistic mindset when it comes to journaling. I tell myself I have to journal every week, or I have to journal every day, or I didn't journal about this thing that was really important last week and I wish I had written it down. I have at times really used journaling as a way to mentally beat myself up and tell myself that I'm not doing it enough, or I'm not, doing it right, or that kind of a thing. So I really want to put this out there too. While it's great to set intentions around how often you'd like to journal, that's great. Be kind to yourself. Be kind to yourself about this. Because we don't want it to be that you're journaling because you feel like you have to. We want you to journal because you want to, because you find benefit from it. So just something to be on the lookout for. Just noticing if you catch yourself getting really self-critical around creating a journaling practice. My journaling practice has changed so many times over the years. I've lost count. I mean, and I've thought about this too recently. I have thought to myself so many times since being pregnant, like, I'm not capturing enough of this experience.
Oh no.
And like, I'm on maternity leave currently, and I thought I'd be on maternity leave and journaling every single morning. No, I haven't journaled once. I just haven't yet, so just be really kind to yourself. There's no wrong way to do it. One of the things that I'll do sometimes that's helpful is like, I'll send quick little emails to myself. I don't know. Let's say I show up to a doctor's appointment 15 minutes early. I'll spend those 15 minutes, I'm journaling. But I'll just write it down as a note in your phone or an email to yourself. Just try to sneak it in when you can. And I found that really helpful rather than getting very rigid in my thinking about what it has to look like. be flexible, be open. It's going to evolve and change as your life evolves and changes, and that's a good thing, honestly. So, yeah.
I
okay.
like it.
All done. I could talk about journaling forever.
You are funny. Hold on. I also have to check something just because I think I used a wrong word, and you know me, I can't. Okay, no, cool. I didn't. Sorry, wiping the sweat off the imaginary sweat.
What word were you thinking of?
Well, I thought maybe I only meant it should be in the form of purgative, not purgatory.
Oh,
and I was like, I'm pretty sure purgatory also means that, like, and it does. It's the but it is the archaic usage of the word.
Oh, okay.
To say, yeah, having the quality of cleansing or purifying, which is what I was meaning. But I was like, oh, people might think I'm just saying, purgatory, like the place. No, this is not what I meant. Like, let me make sure that I'm right about that. And purgative isn't the only right one, and it's not. So anyway, there you go. Learn something new every day, or confirm something new every day. Anyway, sorry, that's just Kate's little weirdness. Anyway, so that's the end of my birthday one. Never to come again. Because, well, I guess maybe we will. We'll have to see if we get. No, because we're doing. I don't know. No, it can't happen. We won't catch up to me. We'll be way past my age pretty soon here. I don't know. So, if you want to be in future Q&A episodes, please feel free to email us, dbtandmepodcast@gmail.com, and or go ahead and post in the Facebook group. That way you get not only included in Q&As later, we take a lot from there, but you get answers from your fellow group members. So, it's a great resource as well. So, until next time.
Yep. Thanks, everybody.
To learn more about us and the DBT skills we're teaching each week, join our Facebook group. Simply log in to your Facebook profile and search for DBT